The events of 2020 were clearly just a warm-up. There are reports breaking right now out of the UK that are some of the most disturbing I have heard in decades regarding Ebola. It has apparently gotten out of Uganda. They took great pains to make sure that this particular new strain didn't get off the continent, and it did anyway. And we're going to get into the details and the facts of this, and I'm going to show you a specific detail that should frighten everyone. But first, of course, as always, we want to say thank you to all of those who have continued to join us at the Florida Maquis Patreon channel and here as well. Real quick, it is Thursday, 17 November 2022. It is 18:30 hours. That is 6:30 p.m. in the evening for those of you in the civilian world. It is currently a brisk 50 degrees. Oh, it actually just dropped to 49.8 degrees here on the northeast coast of Florida. We had a high of 65.3 today, and we're looking like we're heading for a low of 49.1, but it might go lower than that. Barometer is 30.21 of mercury and rising, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But we would love to have you guys join us over at Patreon. Psychological Operations 101. It's now going to be imperative that everyone who wants to survive have this training, because 2020 was just a warm-up. It's only $1 per month, fully refundable for the first 90 days. And after that, it's just refundable on a monthly basis, meaning you can always get your previous 90 days. And the training over there is absolutely top-notch. There are things that you'll learn over there that you won't hear spoken about anywhere here on YouTube. It's usually reserved only for the military. It's the lowest allowable level, and it allows me to share with you, frankly, and in an open way, what I was taught in the military. Now, possible Ebola case investigated in the UK. Now, this is a huge, huge deal, because behind the scenes, you can't get a flight directly off of Africa to anywhere in the Western Hemisphere. Look that up. It is impossible to get a direct flight to the Western Hemisphere anywhere, South, Central, North America, from the continent of Africa. You always have to connect through someplace in the Middle East or in Europe, because they have huge safeguards put in place to keep Ebola from getting off that continent. And it did. Hospital partially closed amid concerns that a patient with a travel history to Africa was developing early symptoms of Ebola. Now, this isn't just any old Ebola. Let's go with facts first. Facts first always, so that Google can't go back and say that I was peddling fake news. Ebola, also called Ebola hemorrhagic fever, and this is right from the Google search page. This is what they're telling you about Ebola, not me. A virus that causes severe bleeding, organ failure, and can lead to death. Humans, and this, pay attention, this is where things get weird. Humans may spread the virus to other humans through direct contact with bodily fluids, such as blood. Initial symptoms include fever, headache, muscle pains, and chills. Later, a person may experience internal bleeding resulting in vomit or coughing or blood. All of the major movies that have been made about this, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen Outbreak and I Am Legend and all this kind of stuff. Extremely rare, fewer than 1,000 U.S. cases per year. Spreads in various ways. Now, how it spreads. This is Google. Facts first. Facts first, Google. By blood products, meaning unclean needles or unscreened blood. By physically touching a contaminated surface. By saliva, kissing or shared drinks, and that's all they list. By how it spreads. What does that mean? That means masks don't really matter. It's not an airborne virus. It is not an airborne virus. You cannot get it just by being in the same room with somebody who has it. You cannot get it simply by just being in the same room with somebody who has it. Now, this is a picture from Africa from way back in late 2018, early 2019, about how they were attempting to stop the spread of Ebola in Uganda. Actually, this picture's from the Congo. Does this look like social distancing to you? Why would it matter if this person were 2 feet closer or 4 feet closer? We refer to this, of course, those of you who followed it, as the magical Ebola-proof snow fencing. Those of you who don't know what this orange stuff is, up north, they use this to break up the wind in areas where they don't want snowdrifts to accumulate. And what the holes do is it basically takes the wind and it takes the directionality out of it, and it diffuses it, and it keeps it from making big, huge snowdrifts. It's called snow fencing. There's only that use for this, and for just, I guess, hurting people generally from one place to the other. But if what Google is saying is true about Ebola, this would be useless. This would be, well, let me put it this way, it would be overkill. It would be way overkill to keep people what looks like 6 feet apart. 6 feet apart. That's interesting. See, this was, of course, from I Am Legend. The images of the zombies and what it did to them. This is CNN. Our first stop was telegraph.co.uk. Our second source is now CNN that confirms this. As Ebola outbreak grows in Uganda, U.S. ramps up preparedness plan. The United States is ramping up a preparedness plan? You see, they don't even mention in this article the issue in Colchester. They're already planning for it. They're already now planning for it. And if you think nurses quit before, if you think nurses with the whole 2020 thing said enough's enough, I'm out, just wait till this comes. See, this isn't 97% survival rate stuff. You see, 97% was the lowest survival rate amongst those who were compromised, those were either elderly or obese or had other pre-existing conditions. Healthier folks, it was much higher. But Ebola, speaking of COVID, that was in 2020. Ebola, nah, nowhere near that. Colchester, this is itv.com. Deep cleaned, whole Colchester Hospital, deep cleaned over possible Ebola case. Why would you need to do that? Infection control issue, routine procedures. Why would you need to close a hospital for a disease that you can only get, facts first, Google, you can only get by coming into direct contact with the fluids of someone? And our final source, EuroWeeklyNews.com, UK hospital in lockdown after potential deadly Ebola case detected, 17 November 2022. You see, there's multiple strains, and Ebola Sudan is like ridiculous. It's like 70% fatal. There's Reston, found in Virginia, but originally came from the Philippines. Lowest capacity for spreading to humans. West Africa, Ebola Cote d'Ivoire. Ebola Bundibugyo, started in Uganda, 2008. Ebola Zaire. Ebola Zaire is the one with the highest fatality rate, 70 to 90%. The fatality rate is 70 to 90%. It is not even, to call this a disease and call COVID a disease is just ridiculous, because they're just so unbelievably different. But this is a very heavy virus. This cannot, it's not, according to Google, airborne. But it can hide. And we've covered this multiple times, but I think it bears repeating. Ebola has the ability to hide in a body where you can test somebody for it, and they will test as if they are free of the virus, while the virus is still hiding in either their sex organs, the brain, the spinal fluid, and the eyes. They can still have this virus, and it will be not in their bloodstream at all. And it can randomly reappear many months, perhaps even over a year in the future. And that, once again, is also a fact-checked fact. Because that happened right here in the United States in the mid-2000s. There were doctors that went over, they took all of the security protocols and all the precautions, and they came back here and they were fine. And then months later, one doctor noticed something very strange going on with one of his eyes, and he went in, and lo and behold, he had brought it back. So this is not scare tactics. This is not attempting to make people afraid of something that's not out there. If there's already plans in place, and the UK says that they've already figured out that it made its way off the African continent, game over, kids. Game over. Because if it made its way from the UK, it just shutting down travel to the UK wouldn't do any good. Because people from the UK then could have gone to Germany, could have gone to anywhere in Europe, could have gone to anywhere in Asia, and then they could come here. Or they could have gone from anywhere from there to anywhere in South America, and then at this point, once it's made its way off the continent, with all of the security and health measures that are already in place to keep it on the continent, there's, I'm not going to sit here and try to contradict Google on what they're saying, because as we know, we're not allowed to ask questions anymore. But that would be an incredibly, incredibly crazy thing to believe that somehow someone with no symptoms got on a plane, made their way to someplace, and then somehow made it to the UK, and then there, having had that interest, that travel history, started to show symptoms. There's all sorts of, and it's baked into how you travel with Africa. You can fly, and don't be confused, you can fly directly there to Africa. But back, no. Back, you've got to go through, you cannot fly from the continent of Africa, directly from Africa, to anywhere in the Western Hemisphere. Not Canada, not the US, not Mexico, nowhere in Central America, nowhere in South America are there direct flights from Africa. Now, you can, like I said, you can fly there, but your return trip takes you back through the Middle East or through someplace in Europe, because they have different protocols just because of this. So, anyway, I will leave that there and pray, because that's really all we can do. Nobody's reporting it. Everybody's high-fiving over having won the House over in Washington, D.C., but believe me, there's still a world going on outside that. Join us over at Patreon. Would absolutely love to have you. It's only $1, and I think you guys would very much be interested in what we have to offer over there. And like I said, if it's not for you, stick around for 90 days. And worst case scenario, you get your $3 back. So I'll leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.